Hey guys, I'm Timmy. This is Christina once again. We are back to talk about some more dog training tips and tricks and all that fun stuff.
Yep, we have the whole secrets for you.
Oh yeah. So today we are going to cover a lot about house manners, jumping, chewing, dumpster diving, begging for food, that kind of stuff. But first, we want to tell you guys a little bit about why we do what we do and why we like to train. So the reason I like to train dogs is I like to make sure that dogs aren't getting rehomed or sent to a shelter when the shelters are overrun these days. There are so many dogs in there, they don't have space for them, and a lot of good dogs are getting put down in shelters, and it's a shame when they could be given a chance, go through training, and now your dog that's just destructive but is good all the other ways, or has another behavioral issue but is good all the other ways, that dog still has a chance and doesn't have to get put in a shelter or rehomed to somebody that neglects the dog or something, and then the dog ends up in a shelter anyways. So that's the main reason I like to train dogs. It's very rewarding to see the owners like just so ecstatic that their dog is listening to them and their dog isn't flying all around and tearing stuff up anymore. It's a really good feeling. What about you?
Well, since Timmy stole all my great ideas, I like to train dogs because of the reward in the end. Being able to get a dog for a training program and seeing the dog from the beginning until the end of the program. I like to see the owners, like Timmy said, it's very exciting to take the dog home and let the owners see the progress that the dog's made throughout the program. Everybody seems to, see such a big change in the dog. And I want to be able to keep dogs out of the Humane Society and, in bad situations like being in a home where it's neglected or abused. Like, that's a huge goal of ours, is to just keep your dog in your home so that you can enjoy it and you can love it and take care of it and have a good dog. And just, I'll say this probably a million times, but live your life, live your best life with your dog. Let your dog live its best life with you. It's just, it's a huge thing.
And we don't have anything against rescues or humane societies. It's just when they get so overrun, now they can't handle more and more dogs coming in. So if we could limit that so that dogs are not getting put down and the rescues now have less dogs in there where they can actually have good homes being found, then, now we are making progress in the dog world instead of knowing that, hey, there's a good chance that dog's going to get put down if they get put in there. And we just hate that thought. So we try to limit that. And it's nice, especially when it's a dog with some aggressive tendencies that can be fixed. Like, a lot of people think, like, well, the dog's barking and growling at other dogs or other people or whatever, so that dog can't be fixed. And it depends on the circumstance. A lot of it is behavioral. There are some dogs that's not the case. It's psychological. But for the most part, it's all behavioral, and it can be fixed, and we do fix it when that happens. Mm-hmm. So that is the main reason that we like to train. Mm-hmm. So let's go back to the basics. Before we talk about the house manner stuff, we always have to remember the foundation that we want to have with our dog. We don't want our dog to have free roam of the whole house. We don't want them sneaking into other rooms. A lot of times it's where you'll see dogs going to the bathroom on the floor or chewing stuff up because they snuck in the other room. They know they're not supposed to be doing it. So they go in there, they chew something up, they go to the bathroom on the floor, and then they come back in that room like they didn't do anything. And what happens? We get up, we walk in the other room, and we find our couch pillow torn up, or something peed on, or pooped on, or whatever. And now we get upset. And a lot of owners will correct their dog at that point. but it's too late for a correction. It's just simply too late. If you don't see it, can't correct them for it. It's not going to change the behavior.
Although we may think that our dog knows, and they may very well know.
Well, they do. That's why they sneak away.
That they did the bad behavior, the unwanted behavior. However, correcting when you haven't saw the act is, I find it to be a little more damaging, and like your bond with your animal at that point is just not as strong, because they're like, I'm not doing anything right now. I just walked out of the bedroom. Like, why are you yelling at me or whatever? So I definitely think it's more effective when you correct in the act of the unwanted behavior.
Yeah, if you're not correcting during the act, then you're correcting the dog for the mess being there, not for making the mess. That's how the dog thinks. So we don't want to correct after the fact. If you see it on the floor and it's after the fact, grumble under your breath, clean it up, and just deal with it. But that's one thing about this. Don't let them roam the house. Keep them in the same room as you. That way, they're supervised.
Yep, that's what I was going to say.
So you can correct them if you see what they're doing. And you can actually correct them right there in the act. So it will prevent the act from happening because you correct them right there in the act. So another thing is, we don't want them to have freedom of staying outside for too long. A lot of people with fenced-in yards and the in-ground electric fences, their dogs end up getting protective over the yard. They'll fence fight, or they'll bark at people or vehicles driving by, walking by, whatever, because they feel like it's their job to protect the yard, and because they haven't been held accountable and corrected for doing stuff wrong. Like, you see your dog showing onset of aggression towards somebody, getting ready to bark. Usually it's a stare first. That's called arousal. Your dog is getting ready to do something. That's when you want to correct. But if you correct during the act, that's okay too. It's just going to be a higher level of correction versus correcting during the arousal. Squash it now before it gets to that point. So if you look out your window, you see your dog getting ready to bark at someone, or barking at someone, raising their fur, whatever. E-collar correction would be the best method right there. Nip it in the butt. You'll correct them for even thinking about doing that.
Yeah, for in the future, and you don't have to be yelling out the window, screaming no at them. Having an e-collar on and being able to use the remote from inside the house it's simple, it's easy, and the behavior is nipped in the butt right now.
And it's not only for like aggressive tendencies or resource guarding reactivity, whatever that you want to call it. Your dog could be given the freedom to be roaming the whole yard, and you're not paying attention. He's out there digging or chewing up your beautiful plants that you just put in the ground, or whatever. I've seen some dogs that like to chew up tree bark, and the owners really like that tree, it's an apple tree or whatever, and their dog's destroying it. So it doesn't only have to be aggression stuff. Like, you see digging, you see chewing on trees or bushes or flowers, whatever, you can correct for that also. But if we aren't being mindful that the dog can make mistakes if, left unsupervised, and if they make the mistake and are not corrected for it, then that mistake's not going to change. Those behaviors aren't going to change.
Right.
But if we correct during the act of making those mistakes, then the chances of that mistake continuing or that behavior continuing, that gets greatly minimized. So, limit the dog's freedom, both in the house and outside. Don't let them run the house. Don't let them run outside of the house without supervision.
Yep, so in that case, if you cannot supervise the dog, that's where a kennel would come into play, or a place bed, so that they are somewhere where that they are not doing anything unwanted. They're safe from their own selves, basically, and you have a peace of mind.
So, and we don't like to just make the dogs stay on place all the time or laying a down stay all the time. We want them to be able to roam around whenever we think that it's appropriate for them to.
Right.
But if we just have them in a downstay all the time, that's not really teaching them not to do those things.
Right.
It's like, well, the trash can's right here and you're laying there, so stay in a downstay and I know that you won't get in the trash. Okay, I mean, that's decent thinking, but let's prevent the trash altogether. And we'll talk about correcting out of the trash can here in a few minutes too.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, we don't want your dog to be on lockdown all the time, but we want you to supervise your dog all the time.
Right.
So that you can correct your dog when they do something wrong. And then the third thing is, the second thing, limit the human affection to your dog.
Mm-hmm.
Too much human affection, the dog starts to think that they're on the same level as you. You start to build some psychological issues like anxiety if they become addicted to that human affection. And a lot of times that's where the behavioral stuff will start. Now the third thing is hold your dog accountable when they do something wrong.
Yes.
If you see them doing something wrong, correct them for it.
Yes, right away.
Yeah. And if you don't correct them for whatever they're doing, the behavior's not going to change. It's going to get worse. The dog thinks in the lines of, am I doing something right or am I doing something wrong? There is no in between. There's no gray area. It's black or white. So you have to teach the dog either that's okay or it's not okay.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So you're basically just taking the role of the mother. When you bring a puppy home or a dog home and you welcome it into your home, you are taking over the mother role of the puppy. So the mother of the puppy is its leader, not its litter mate. It doesn't listen to its litter mates. It listens to its mom. And basically all the mom does is correct it, clean it, and feed it. And that's what your dog is expecting you to do until you give it that extra freedom and that extra affection. That's when you turn into the litter mate and it starts to think that, well, I get to do basically everything that my leader's doing, so they must not be my leader. They're my litter mate. The puppy cuddles with its litter mates when they are born. They don't really cuddle with a mom. They cuddle with all of their litter mates. So if you start to put yourself into that position for your dog, the dog will start to respect you a lot more. It'll look to you for guidance and permission, basically. And you are holding your dog accountable for all of the unwanted stuff that you don't want. So put yourself into that leadership role. We're not telling you not to show your dog any affection ever. Just limit it. Don't, let your dog sleep with you in your bed. Don't allow your dog to have freedom to being up on the couches and, chairs or whatever else that you guys are sitting on. If you would like your dog to be on the furniture, make it be like invite only situation so that, you can come up here for a couple minutes and pet it, kind of love on it a little bit and then make it get down.
Yep. When you say down or off, I like to say off so that it's not confused with lay down. But when you say it the first time, the dog needs to get down.
Right.
If they don't listen, it should be a correction applied.
Right. Holding your dog accountable.
Yep.
You gave it a command, it didn't follow it. Now you have to follow up with a correction.
We want to be the leader for the dog in everything. So every time that you give your dog something, water, food, they should be asking you permission for it. They shouldn't be rushing out the door every time that you open it. They should be sitting, waiting, asking for your permission.
Right.
They need to learn that they survive because of you. And once they see that, then that respect level goes up.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about the dogs jumping on people.
If you're coming home from a long day of work, we recommend having your dog in the kennel. That will prevent...
your dog is unsupervised.
Right, and that will prevent it from bum rushing you and knocking you over, jumping up on you, whatever it is as soon as you walk through the door. If you are coming in from, doing a small task from outside and your dog is inside with your kid, for example, and you walk back in and it's jumping on you, having a leash on him would be a great thing so that you can step on the leash to prevent the jumping. If it is attached to a prong collar, it'll basically correct itself. If you
Freya,
have friends or company come over and the dog likes to jump on your company, e-collar correction or a prong collar correction, obviously you would need to have a leash attached to the prong collar to be able to do a hard pop to correct it that way, or like I said, an e-collar correction.
Lowest level that works is what we want. So
I'm struggling today, if you guys can't tell.
If the jumping stops with level 15, cool, that's awesome. But we also want to think about the level that is going to prevent it from happening in the future too.
Right.
So if level 15 is just a tickle to the dog and they continue jumping, then, next time we should probably try 20 or 25 or whatever. Like, don't just stay at the same level because it stopped it this time. It doesn't mean that it's going to prevent it in the future.
Yeah, and that's what it is all about, is prevention. So, yeah, it might stop it right now for this very moment in time, but is it high enough to make the dog remember, oh my gosh, I didn't like that and I don't ever want to do that again? Yep. So that's like your main goal with an e-collar correction when it comes to jumping. I went over the by yourself thing, which probably wasn't very clear because I can't talk today. So we recommend, if you are struggling, keeping a leash on it so that you can correct it if you are by yourself, and or having the e-collar on and keeping the remote close to you so that if they do decide to jump on you, you can correct it right away. You can also do exercises with like your family members and, have scenarios where you're walking in from outside or whatever, have, your partner, significant other, whatever, be sitting on the couch and correct that way, or one of your kids, if they're old enough to understand how the e-collar works, they can be helpful. So there's definitely things that you guys can practice so that you guys can correct that unwanted behavior of jumping.
So, main things to take away: prong collar corrections, e-collar corrections. Another thing is, all your dog wants when they're jumping is...
I knew I was missing something.
It's okay. All they want is to be engaged with. They want attention.
Yep.
So, let's refrain from giving them any attention. They jump up on us and we are pushing them off or just saying, hi buddy, and then pushing them off. Guess what? We just rewarded that behavior.
Yes.
And if we're just pushing them off, we're not necessarily rewarding it, but we're still giving
engaging.
them... we're still engaging with them. So, we want to ignore them altogether. What I do when a dog jumps up on me, I turn my head, I look the other way, across my arms. Why? Because the dog learns, well, I'm not getting anything out of this.
Right, it's not pleasurable to them. It's basically jumping up on a wall. Like, what is that doing for them?
Now, some dogs will continue to try harder at that point, but I'll wait until all four paws are on the ground, and then I'll pet them. And they realize, okay, well, I only get pet when my paws are on the ground. But that alone is not going to necessarily stop the behavior or change the behavior. So we need to apply a correction in there as well. E-collar correction or prong collar correction. One of the two. Or stepping on the leash and letting the dog correct itself. Every time it jumps up, prong collar engages, they get corrected. They're like, you know what? Every time I jump, I get corrected, and jumping sucks. Right. So I'm going to stop jumping.
That's exactly what it is.
Next thing we can talk about is chewing on stuff. You walk into the other room and your dog chewed up your couch pillow. Remember, we were talking about this a few minutes ago. One, keep your dog supervised so that you can correct them during the act. I understand there are times that this isn't possible, or sometimes we just run downstairs real quick to grab a load of laundry and the dog's left alone for 5 minutes and we come back and they peed on the floor or whatever. It's like, it's frustrating. I get it. But try to limit those times that the dog's unsupervised. And then you'll be able to correct them if they do that stuff right there in your presence. But let's talk about those times that you can't do it. So what you can do is set up a Wi-Fi camera in one of those rooms and set your dog up for failure. The dog goes into the room. You have an e-collar on the dog. They start chewing on the pillow. You're not in the room. but you're correcting because you're watching on your phone. Oh, there he goes. Boom, corrects on the e-collar. Doesn't mean put it straight to like 80 or 100. Again, the lowest level that works. Could be 15, could be 10, depends on the dog, depends on the drive state of the dog. But just because 15 doesn't work doesn't mean that your next level should be like 80. Like go up in slow increments, 20, 25, and then try that level. If that doesn't work, go up a little bit more. We have a wide range with the e-collar technologies. This one is the EZ900, and this has 100 levels. The ET300, which is the mini educator, that's the one that we use the most. That one also has 100 levels. So that's a wide range of being able to find the level that works to stop the behavior. So we're watching. He starts chewing on the pillow. We don't say anything. We just press a button.
Yep.
He's like, ow, that sucked.
Yeah, so now he is like associating that pain with the pillow.
Yep.
Well, I was chewing on this pillow and I got this pain or whatever you want to call it, the stimulation from the e-collar, and they're like, oh, okay, well, I'm not going to do that no more because that was uncomfortable. I didn't like the way that felt. So I'm not going to continue to chew on this pillow. And that scenario can be used with all of the unwanted behaviors that you don't want. So a Wi-Fi camera is very beneficial, especially when you want to correct some stuff that your dog don't necessarily do, that they don't do in front of you, that they only do when you're out of the room or you've left, or whatever situation it may be. It's a very good tool to correct unwanted behaviors.
Yeah, so we are taking ourselves out of the equation at that point. Sorry, my wife just got the dog. She's going to take him outside. But we are taking ourselves completely out of that equation because the dog can't blame us when they're in the other room, we're in the other room, we're not saying anything. All we're doing is pressing a button on the e-collar and watching them. The dog's like, all right, a couple different things. Either one, I did that to myself because I was chewing on the pillow. 2, the pillow did that to me. Or 3, just the environment did it to me. So they don't blame us for it.
Right.
But what happens regardless?
They get corrected.
Yeah, and they stay away from the pillow. They're
Right.
like, that pillow sucks. Chewing on pillows sucks.
Yep.
I'm not doing it anymore.
Yep.
Or chewing on the couch or whatever. So
as long as it's the lowest level that works, and
Yep.
it's a level that makes them want to not do it again. Like, that's your main goal, is to make sure you're correcting at a level that makes them not want to do it again. So always use the lowest level that works, but you want it to be a level that makes them not want to do it again.
Yep. It has to be meaningful to the dog.
Yeah.
So that we can educate them to stop it. Because in nature, there are consequences for doing bad behavior, committing bad behavior. Mother dog does it. The leader of the packs do it.
Yeah.
If the dog's doing something wrong, they get corrected for it.
Right.
So why, when we bring dogs into our home, are we trying to go around that when that's what happens in nature? Like when people say, well, I'm just going to redirect my dog, give them a bone because they're chewing on this. Well, no, they're chewing on that, and you just gave them a bone, so you just rewarded them for chewing on that.
Sorry to
Yeah, you're
interrupt
fine.
you, but that's exactly how he's thinking too.
Yeah.
Oh, so next time
Yep.
I can go back and start chewing on that, and I'm going to get another bone.
Yep.
You're not fixing the problem. You are making the problem worse.
Yeah, and it gets as far as some people will actually give their dog food on a walk. Say the dog is barking at a car or lunging at a car for driving by. Some people will try to give the dog food to like redirect its mind. Like, instead of barking at the car, eat the food. But how it happens is the dog barks, then they give the dog food to try to redirect its attention. So we just rewarded the barking.
Yep.
So now the dog is going to bark at the next car and then look over at you like, hey,
I need my treat.
where's my food
Yeah,
at?
where's my...
So instead, why don't we think about it this way? A car drives by, they bark at the car, and we correct on the e-collar. And then the next car that drives by, instead of barking, the dog looks up at you, and then you give it food. Because it didn't bark.
Right.
Right?
So
It
now
looked at
you're
you.
rewarding the behavior that you do want, basically. They didn't bark. They looked at you, and here's your treat, basically, instead of giving them a treat for the barking, basically, because that's how the dog's thinking. I barked at this car. My owner's giving me a treat. I must be doing something right.
Yep.
So, yeah, you're just basically making the behavior worse by
redirecting.
Yep.
Yeah. Redirecting doesn't work ever. It just makes the issues worse. So, let's talk about getting in the trash then.
Going back to like the chewing, a e-collar is a good effective tool when your dog is, going towards the trash. You know that it's headed towards the trash. You can do an e-collar correction. When the dog is near the trash and sniffing the trash, do an e-collar correction. The minute that your dog shows any kind of interest in the trash, you want to correct it. You can do a prong collar correction for, getting close to the trash can, as long as you have a leash attached to them. You can do a hard prong correction. E-collar is probably going to be the most effective, especially if you don't have a leash attached and or a prong collar on. But for example, my male shepherd loved to get in the trash. Every time we walked out of the room, he was in the trash can. Something was out somewhere along the line. So we just set him up for failure, like Timmy said. Put the trash can in the middle of the living room floor, and the second he went to the trash can, even showed interest in the trash can, we were correcting with our e-collar right away. We did a couple exercises where we walked him around the trash can. The minute he started sniffing close to it, we corrected right away. It probably took us like 2 corrections before he finally got it, but I'll tell you what, he's never went back to the trash can since, because he's like, oh, me going near that trash can is uncomfortable. I am not trying to feel that discomfort.
But what would happen if he's getting in the trash and then you say, no, Morty, here's a bone. This is what I want you to have.
Then he's going to continue to get in the trash, because at that point,
or it's going to get even worse.
Associating it, with, oh, I can get in the trash can. Every time I get in the trash can, I get a bone. Yeah. Like, how exciting is that? Especially for dogs that love bones. You definitely don't want to redirect something like that. Like, it's nasty, for one. Nobody wants to pick up old trash. Yep. For 2, we have no idea what our dogs ate out of it, especially if they weren't supervised.
Right. There could be plastic in there or cans, anything, and the dogs can't pass that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Couch cushions, stuffed animals. If the dogs swallow that and it causes a blockage, now we're talking about a several $1,000 surgery if the dog makes it.
Right.
At the vet. I mean, I just don't have several $1,000s to throw around all the time for every dog that chews something up.
Right. Oh, me either. And
what do I do?
Pretty pricey.
Yeah. What do I do to prevent that? Keep my dog supervised.
Yep.
And if they are trying to do something like chew something up in my presence when I'm supervising them, they get corrected.
Right.
If I know that they're unsupervised, like if I'm just going to set them up and see what they do, then I'll have a Wi-Fi camera on in the room. And if they start to do something, correct them with the e-collar.
Yeah, so that Wi-Fi camera really comes in handy too, especially if you want to do exercises with your dog and you not be so-called present. So,
and the same thing for the trash.
Yep.
You can set a Wi-Fi camera up on your trash can and set them up for failure. Mm-hmm. Leave the house, go to the end of the driveway, drive down the block. Like, some dogs will be like, no, I know you haven't driven away yet, so I'm just going to lay down right here.
Yep.
But the second they hear those tires drive away from the house, now game's on. But these things go a half mile. So a half mile is pretty long for you to drive a block away, and you can still watch on your phone.
Yep.
Dog starts shredding up the trash.
Boom.
Gets corrected.
Correction.
Again, they can't blame you for it.
Yep.
They either blame themselves or the trash can.
More than likely the trash can.
Yep.
But either way is fine.
How about counter surfing? Let's talk a little bit about that. So I'm sure a lot of you guys have dogs that if you have some cupcakes up on the counter, or you just ordered a pizza and it's sitting up on the counter, they just kind of walk by the counter and sniff up alongside it, and if they get away with it and they know that no one's looking for 10 seconds, bam, they just snagged a piece of pizza and it's gone that quick.
Yeah.
Like all the evidence and everything is gone because they licked the floor up and all the crumbs and whatever.
The box is gone and all. It's all gone. And it don't take long for a dog to devour pizza. Or, I mean, shoot. Like, Zeus can eat his bowl of food in, like, 2.2 seconds. I've never seen a dog eat as fast as him in my entire life.
It's like we've never fed him before.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Crazy.
So, just keep in mind that it's quick. It goes fast.
But when that stuff happens, one, we need to be vigilant of it. So keep them supervised. If you see their nose start going up towards the counter, we can correct them, and that'll keep their nose away from the counter.
Yep.
And they'll start to blame the counter for the correction, or blame their action of going towards the counter for the correction. So they'll stay away from that regardless.
Yep.
And then we can set them up once again. So one of the Malinois, when I first got her, Misha, she was a counter surfer. And I just got done making some burgers, and she was all kinds of interested. Like, she kept, like, creeping into the kitchen, but then she would turn around because she knew that she would get in trouble if she did it right in front of me. So I set up a camera, and the second that I went into my bedroom, I was watching her. She climbed up on the counter and started licking all of the hamburger grease. And I corrected her on the e-collar. And I did that a couple times until I found the level that worked. She won't go towards the counter anymore because she got corrected for it.
Right.
So she either blamed herself or blamed the counter, one of the two. So you can do it both when you're in the room, when they're supervised, and when they're unsupervised. But if they're unsupervised, make sure you put a camera on there, peek in a window, do something like that. I took a dog home one time that was an expert counter surfer, they called him. And I trained him at my house, stay off the counters and whatnot. But sometimes they need that transition.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
Well, you know what? I'm back home. Your rules don't apply to me anymore. I'm back in my space. So we were doing the go home lesson, and it was taking like 3, 4, 5 hours for it. But I'm teaching the owners everything. And I said, all right, let's set the dog up for failure with this counter surfing thing. So they ordered pizza for me, and for them, of course, but it was very nice. So we had the pizza sitting on the table, which is like, to hear on me, so it's not hard for the dog to get his nose up there. And we all left. They said bye to the dog and everything. We all walked out the door. They opened the garage door, then shut the garage door, and I snuck around back and was peeking in the siding door. And it probably took the dog 10 seconds, and he opened his mouth to grab the piece of pizza, and as soon as his mouth went toward it, I corrected him. He ran away from the table, laid down on the floor, and did not go back towards the table again. And I showed the owners that, because one of the owners was standing beside me, and the other one was still trying to get around to where I was at. But I recorded it on my phone also. So I was like, this is what you have to do. And it works. It really works, guys.
Yeah, very effective. It just teaches the dog, this is not okay. This is something that you need to stay away from. And, eliminating yourself from, yelling at them or telling them no, completely takes you out of the, the equation. So, like Timmy said, they are blaming themselves, or they are blaming the pizza or the counter or the trash or the pillow, whatever it is, it's the same concept. It's all about correcting. No redirection, correction right now as soon as you can catch them in the act.
Yep. So, what about begging for food?
Begging for food, you have a couple different scenarios that you can do. My favorite one is the cage. Putting them in the kennel during, dinner time. I always like to feed my dogs during the same time that I'm eating, so that I know that they're being fed, I'm being fed, they're in their kennels. I have nothing to worry about. I do have a dog, unfortunately, that got ruined by my mother because she likes to hand feed her animals.
Pointing fingers. Listen to her. Name dropping.
But I let my mom babysit or dog sit for me, and she was giving her table scraps behind my back. And I was like, why is my dog begging so much? Like, I don't understand. Like, I never fed her any kind of human food. I've never, like, let her get, pieces of food, that's dropped on the floor or anything like that. And I'm like, I just don't understand why she's begging so much. Well, finally I figured it out. So, unfortunately, Remy, she begs. Does she get corrected? Absolutely. The last couple of times that I caught her, she doesn't beg towards me or my boyfriend. She only does it towards the kids. So we've had to, set up some scenarios to correct that. I don't know what my point was in telling you that story, unfortunately.
Well, I'll tell you. Don't feed your dog human food.
Yeah.
There's no reason to. They have dog food. Or raw food, whatever you feed them.
Absolutely.
Let it stick to that.
Yeah, and that's a good point. But back to the the kennel while you're eating is a good idea. If you don't like that idea, you can have a place bed set up in a nearby area where you guys can eat. The dog's on the place bed. And
maybe you guys don't know what place is, so
it's
a
elevated bed for dogs.
Yep.
You could use a enlarged pillow or whatever as well. We like the elevated beds because it gives it like a sense of its own area is how I like to explain it.
And we can use numerous different surfaces. You can use a rug. You can use the elevated bed. You can use just a regular dog bed. It doesn't matter, but what we want to do is teach the dog, hey, when I say this word, that means go there, lay down, and I need you to stay there until I ask you to get up.
Yes.
So lay there, relax, chill out. I'll let you know when to get up. Okay? So this is really good for when people come over and your dog might be one of those people that's all up in their face or whatever. Like, it's a good time to put your dog on place when new people come over.
You said your dog might be one of those people.
All right, I'm sorry. One of those dogs.
Oh, I'm sorry. Today is a great time. It's been great.
Another reason is you guys are eating. Your dog is across the room. They're on place. If they get up, they get corrected. If they get up without permission, they get corrected. So they're just going to stay there and relax while you eat. If they lay there and stare at you while you eat, I don't really care. At least they are laying down on place. Like, it's hard for a dog to do. But with repetition, anything's possible, right?
Absolutely.
Most things are possible.
It is, too. And personally, Timmy said that he doesn't mind the dog staring at you. I personally don't want my dog to even acknowledge that I'm eating anything. That's how we do it in our home. We don't necessarily make our dogs go. If we are eating outside of like dinner time or, just having a snack and the dogs aren't in their kennel, I expect them to not even look at me. Like, this is mine. You don't need to worry about it. Go do, go somewhere. I don't care if it's place, kennel, wherever. Don't be staring at me while I'm eating my food.
Yeah, just move away from me. Right?
Yeah.
So,
which
we have a command for that.
Yep.
You can call it the out command.
Yep.
O-U-T. You can say away. You can say go. It doesn't matter as long as you use the same word every single time.
Yep.
And just practice with saying it and then having someone move the dog away. And then the dog moves away, they get a treat. Do that over and over and over again. The dog learns, okay, when you say that word, that means
I need to go away.
Yeah, get out of my space. Mm-hmm. Get away from me. So you use that while you're eating. Dog moves away.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yep. And referring back to the out command, it means it can be used in different references. When you're playing ball with your dog, you tell them out to drop the ball. Yep. Move away from my space, out, move away from me, get away from me. When you're feeding the dog or watering the dog and they're, up close and personal trying to get the food or get the water, you can tell them out. They move away, you pour the food, get the water, whatever. So it can refer to multiple things as long as you, use repetitions to teach it and just stay consistent.
Yep. So with the drop it out, So that's important because some dogs have that little bit of toy aggression, or as it's formally called, resource guarding. You go to reach for the ball in the dog's mouth, and now the dog's growling at you or trying to bite you. So we are trying to put a barrier in between that. Tell them out, they drop it, and then I don't mean only physically drop it, I mean like mentally forget about it. Don't look at it, don't stare at it while I'm trying to grab it, because then they might go after my hand or whatever. I want the dog to just leave it alone completely.
Yeah.
You know? So, what we do for that, we can do pressure on the e-collar, which is like lower than a correction level, but it can be into the correction level range. It depends on the dog and the drive state at the time. So what we want to do is we'll just slowly power up on the stimulation after we say out. So we say out, power up on the stim, and then once the stim gets high enough where they're like, all right, I'm done, I give up, then they'll spit it out. And then that pressure goes away. They learn that they are in control of the pressure. Generally, you want to start low, like level 5, and then start powering up from there.
Yep.
So you might get up to 15, 20 or whatever, but it's up to the dog at that point.
Yep.
They're in control of stopping the pressure.
Yes.
That's one way. If they already know it, then you can say out, and they don't listen, then correct. No, correction, out. And then they learn, okay, if I don't do it the first time, I'm going to get corrected the second time.
Right.
You do prong collar too. Prong collar pop instead of an e-collar. But then not the moving away from me, but the moving away from the food. Why is that important, or moving away from toys?
It prevents aggression and
food resource guarding. If they have any type of that in them, we don't want to get bit.
Right.
So we're going to pour some food in their bowl, or take the bowl to give them water after they ate or whatever. Then if we just go reaching our hand in there real quick, they might feel some sort of way about it.
Yep.
So let's put a barrier in between there. Tell them out. Work with them first on a leash. One person holding a leash. Say out. Pull them away from the food.
Yes.
And then have them sit.
Yep.
Then when they do that, they get a treat.
Right.
It's all about repetition. And then after they know it, truly know it, if they don't listen, then we correct them for not doing it.
Right.
Or apply pressure. Dial up on the pressure while you're holding it down until the dog moves away. They learn that they're in control of turning that pressure off.
Right.
And then you can do downstay for
begging for food.
begging.
Yep. So just tell them to lay down or whatever command you choose to use, and it prevents them from begging as well.
So when we say down, it means lay down and stay there.
Yes.
We don't have to say stay to your dog like over and over again, like stay. No, stay.
Yeah.
I hear a lot of people say that, and it's just irrelevant. Like, you're giving your dog too many commands. Instead, teach the dog, when I tell you to do something, that means just chill there.
It's implied, yeah. That's the command. We're telling you to sit. You sit until we say otherwise. We want you to down. You need to down until we say otherwise.
So what if they don't? What if they say down, and the dog just gets up every single time right after they lay down?
Then it's all about repetition until they continue to, stay in that position or that command until you release, which we normally have a release word.
It's generally free.
Yep.
Can be okay.
I like to say okay free. No. But seriously, I do. But it gives them that sense of, okay, they told me to down. I need to be down until they give me that release word, and then we'll free them, and they're out of command, and they know the difference. But like Timmy has been saying this whole time, it's all about repetition. So the more reps you guys do with the same command over and over, the more they're going to understand it and continue to follow the command without, too many, corrections or having to put them back into the position or whatever it may be.
So if you're teaching them to stay down, like you already taught them down, they know it, but they're getting right back up, well, then we have to slowly build them up to staying in the same position for a long period of time. If they just learned it, then we can't expect them to lay down and stay for 30 minutes.
No.
It's unrealistic. Yeah. So, and on another note, we can't expect them to stay in a down when we walk 100 yards away from them either.
Mm-mm.
It's too early for that. We have to build up to things like that.
Small steps.
Yeah. So, we want to reward them for laying down first. Then we take that reward and we make them wait for it. Wait until I give that free command.
Mm-hmm.
So they're laying down, and now they're like, wait a minute, where's my treat? You've been giving me my treat every time that my elbows hit the floor, but now you didn't. And then you wait 10 seconds. Then you give that free word, and now they get the treat.
Right.
So then they start to get in the mindset of, all right, wait for the free word. Slowly build that time.
Mm-hmm.
You do 10 seconds now, 30 seconds next, or whatever. Make them get good at that before moving up the time. A minute next.
Yep.
Before you know it, you're at 5 minutes and 10 minutes and whatever.
Yep.
But if you just go straight to, oh, the dog gets up, so I correct on a correction level, the dog's just going to get scared to get up.
Yep. And then it's not going to do anything for you at all. It's just going to become submissive and just pretty much stay stagnant at that point. Just not want to do anything at all.
So what I like to do is, after we do lots of repetitions of slowly building time, and the dog's starting to learn that duration, then I will apply pressure if the dog gets up. So I have the e-collar on a pressure level. Dog gets up, I apply pressure.
Until it lays back down.
Yeah, either the dog lays back down or I help it lay back down with the leash so that the dog learns, okay, pressure goes away when I lay back down. And when I get up, the pressure's applied. So you know what? I'm just going to stay laying down.
Yeah.
So we want to get them in that mindset.
Yep.
But it's a slow process. You have to slowly build up to it.
Yes.
So we also talked about the counter surfing, getting in the trash and stuff. But we were talking about correcting with an e-collar. But we haven't talked much about like puppy corrections. So some people just bring their puppy into the house and it's getting in the trash or getting on the counters. What do we do in that situation?
Well, I mean, it depends on how old the puppy is.
Okay.
I mean,
let's say 12 weeks.
Okay, so 12 weeks is a good age to start doing some prong collar corrections, or a bonker, a small, meaningful tap on the nose will more than likely prevent the dog from continuing something when they're that young. Yeah. So 12 weeks of age up to 5.5, 6 months, you're going to want to use a prong collar for corrections for puppies. And then after about 6 months, we start implementing the e-collar. Yep. But just prong collar corrections, a decent, meaningful pop on the prong collar. Puppy goes up to the counter. You have a prong collar and a leash on. Pop the prong collar. And they're gonna, not want to continue that unwanted behavior of counter surfing.
Yeah, and keep your dog on a leash. If it's a puppy that age and they have freedom to run around the whole house, well, they're not fully educated yet.
No.
So you're gonna have issues with running, chewing stuff up, peeing on the floor, or whatever. Yeah. If you have a leash in your hand, then now you can correct those things, and the dog only has 6 feet of freedom. Or, if you want to get a long leash in the house, but something. Don't just let the dog feel like it's running the show.
Yeah.
What about for chewing? Puppies chewing on stuff.
I would implement the same thing with a prong collar. You catch it chewing on something, prop on the prong collar, and it should prevent them from continuing the chewing. If it's continuing with the chewing, then you need to just pop them a little bit harder. Yep. It's the same concept as the e-collar, as they might feel it and quit for that moment, but if they go back to it, then the correction just wasn't a meaningful enough correction to prevent the chewing. So just like the e-collar, you continue to power up until it's prevented, not just stop for the moment.
Yeah. And you can use a bonker too, a rolled up towel, a rolled up newspaper. You're not beating your dog, okay? But correct on a level that's high enough to stop whatever. So the lowest level that stops. So if just that little tiny tap didn't work, next time try a harder tap.
In the back to the chewing for the puppy, so that's just on objects. If the puppy is like continuing to like nibble on you or like want to chew on you, if nobody else is around to be able to like help you with a prong collar correction, you can also gag your dog. Shove your fingers down in the back of its throat.
They hate that.
Yeah, they're gonna definitely stop. Sometimes I will grab the bottom of their jaw and like
hold the tongue down.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, kind of stick my finger down in the bottom of its mouth, hold it there for a few seconds, and they're like, oh, okay, well, I didn't like that, so I'm not going to continue doing that.
Right.
You're not harming the dog. You're just preventing it from doing something that you don't want. Who wants their dog chewing on them? Yeah. I don't.
Don't do that with an adult dog. You try to stick your finger down an adult dog's throat, it's probably not going to work.
Yeah, you definitely should do
an e-collar correction or prong collar correction, one of the two for those.
Sure.
One thing that we didn't talk about that I just thought of is barking. We have a lot of nuisance barking dogs that they just don't stop. So we have a couple different tools that can help with that. One, a bark collar. The only issue with a bark collar is when the bark collar's not on the dog,
it's going to bark.
They're going to bark, and they're not going to get corrected. So the dog gets collar smart. Collar's on, I can not bark anymore. Collar's off,
I can bark. Yeah.
So that's nice for like when we aren't home because the dog's not barking, keeps them calm and whatever. Or overnight, like, hey, we can sleep because the dog's not barking.
Right.
And I don't mean one of those bark collars that's like spraying stuff in the dog's nose and eyes. That's ridiculous. Centronella. Yeah. Dogs have a very strong sense of smell. So a Centronella bark collar is going to last in their nose for a long time or get into their eyes even. And they're going to be constantly corrected for the one bark. But the stimulation is just bark stim. So, or bark shock, whatever, however you want to say it. But the dog learns, okay, whenever I bark, I get stemmed. And I don't like getting stemmed, so I'm going to stop barking. And then I won't get stemmed. It's funny how that works. But if we don't have the bark collar on them, and they are just in the house or outside and we're supervising them and whatever, they bark, we can do an e-collar correction. Or if we have them on a leash, we can do a prong collar correction. And again, it is the lowest level that works to stop that behavior. If we say quiet and then they continue barking, they should be corrected. They get one warning, not 17.
Right.
And then if you say the word no, your no needs to have meaning. You can't just be like, all right, Fido, knock it off. No, but never follow it up with a correction. Your dog has to realize that, like, hey, when you say no, it means something.
Yeah, it's holding it accountable.
Yep.
So if you aren't doing anything or following it up with anything, it's just going to continue to call your bluff and continue with doing whatever it is that you don't want them to be doing because they're like, oh, well, your no means absolutely nothing to me because there's nothing there to stop me from doing it. There's no correction. There's nothing meaningful behind your no, basically.
So I think we've covered everything that we can think of for house manners, unless you can think of anything else.
Nope, I think we hit some pretty good points for you guys.
Yeah. And continue to reach out to us, ask us questions. Hey, will you guys talk about this in one of your episodes or whatever? And we will get as many topics as we can.
Absolutely.
All right. It is nice being able to educate you guys, and I hope you guys learned something from this today.
Me too.
We'll see you guys next time.
See ya.